What if you could hear from someone who actually fought in the American Revolution? I don't mean from a history book, but from a real, personal letter written back in 1815. Well, today, we're basically cracking open a time capsule. It's a memoir written by a father for his children, and it gives us this incredibly rare, intimate look at the life of someone from America's founding generation. So let's dive in.
And this is how he kicks things off. Benjamin Seaver is 58 years old, and he's looking back on a life that literally saw the birth of a nation. Now, the key thing here is he's not writing this for some stuffy historian, right? He's writing it for his kids, and that's what makes it so powerful. This isn't some grand political document. It's a personal story told plainly, just like he says, from a dad to his children.
All right, so let's start where he does. His youth. We're going to see how a pretty regular farm boy from Massachusetts gets completely swept up in the single biggest event of his lifetime, the American Revolution. Benjamin's childhood was all about hard work out on the Massachusetts frontier. His family was always on the move, always clearing land, always building something. But as he's hitting his teenage years, the talk in towns like Westminster is all about the trouble brewing with the crown. Taxes, soldiers in Boston. You can almost feel the tension building right there with him.
And what's just wild is how fast all of this goes down. On April 19th, 1775, word gets to his town about Lexington and Concord. He says his heart pounded in his chest. Less than a month later, he enlists. He's only 18 years old. By August, he's already a corporal, in charge of other men. This wasn't some decision he mulled over for years. It was an immediate gut reaction to seeing a conflict ignite right on his doorstep.
So what was it actually like to be a soldier back then? Well, Benjamin is brutally honest about it. He admits he might have pictured, the glory of battle, but the reality, it was completely different. His time during the siege of Boston was mostly digging trenches, building fortifications, and just waiting. It was exhausting, unglamorous, tedious work. And that really shows you something important, that war wasn't just won in the famous battles, but through sheer grinding endurance.
Okay, so after serving his country, Benjamin's next mission was, it was building a life of his own. The war for the nation's independence was over. His personal fight for a family and a future was just getting started. So in 1783, the very same year the Treaty of Paris officially ended the war, Benjamin marries Martha Whitney. And you can just feel it in his writing. He calls her his partner in all things, his helpmate, his love. It's so clear that this partnership was the absolute bedrock of his entire adult life. Everything he builds from this moment on, he builds it with her. And boy, they did not waste any time. Their first child, Axa, shows up just 16 months after their wedding. And as you can see, the kids just kept on coming. Benjamin writes, with what sounds like a bit of a smile, that they kept coming regularly and that their house was soon filled with noise and life and love. So this growing family, it really lit a fire under him, fueled this powerful ambition. Benjamin's story now becomes this perfect example of that early American dream, owning your own land and building something that's going to last. When his father passes away, Benjamin inherits the family farm. But for him, that was just the starting line. See, land was, it was everything. It meant security, it meant you could feed your family, and most importantly, it meant you had something real, something tangible to leave for your kids. Buying land became his lifelong obsession. And he was really, really good at it. In the 1790s alone, just through careful saving and making smart purchases, he added over 100 acres to his farm. This wasn't some lucky break. This was the result of years of backbreaking work and what he calls careful management of resources. And this chart here, it just lays it out so perfectly, doesn't it? He starts with the original homestead, and then, piece by piece, he builds an impressive farm. 40 acres over here, another 12 over there. Each and every purchase was another step toward making sure his family's future was secure. By 1798, he'd built something truly substantial. So just how substantial was it? Well, when the federal government did its first ever direct tax in 1798, Benjamin's 157 acres were valued at over $1,000. Now, for a farmer in rural Massachusetts at the turn of the 19th century, that was a huge deal. That told you he'd made it. It was a testament to 2 decades of just relentless work. And that brings us right back to where we started, the 58-year-old Benjamin, writing all this down. So what was the point of it all? What were the big core lessons he really wanted to pass on to his kids? Well, Benjamin basically boils his entire life down to this set of principles. Work hard, value land, stick by your family, serve your country, live by faith, and marry well. To him, these weren't just, nice sayings on a poster. These were the real, practical, time-tested rules for living a good and meaningful life. And right here, he just sums it all up. His definition of a successful life isn't about getting rich or being famous. It's about fulfilling his duties as a provider, as a caretaker of the land, as a citizen, and as a father. That is all a man can do, he writes, and it is everything. It's just an incredibly profound and humble way to look at life. He ends his memoir with this really powerful charge to his children. He connects his own personal story, all the tedious work, all the sacrifice, directly to the freedom that they now get to enjoy. He's telling them, look, this gift you have of being an American, it wasn't free. It was paid for, and it is your duty to remember that.
Benjamin Seaver died just a year after writing this letter, but he left behind this crystal-clear account of his values and his life's work. And it really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? In our world, where we document every little thing, what's the actual story that we're leaving behind for the generations that come after us? What advice will they find in the records we create?